Good day, students. Let's work on Unit 32, Management and Implementation of Conventions. Indeed, conventions are not smaller thing to do, isn't it? It's a big task to complete that, isn't it? Quite tedious, but worth doing it. Now, today we are going to work on how do we manage and implement convention. As I said, it's not an easy task, but we can do it. Okay. Now we need to have enough experience. We need to have enough skills. We need to have enough knowledge at what are different tasks and jobs which actually are to be executed. And to do those, we need to actually make sure while we do those tasks, we are actually maintaining the quality. If not so, then obviously the quality is going to be impacted, right? Let's move on and look at what are the learning objectives for this topic. The first thing is to understand the managerial task involved in the implementation of convention. That means, what are the tasks that managers do while they implement the convention? And what are various organization tasks? Well, managers' tasks and operational tasks. So if you say anything about operation is that the actions and the activity. And management is the people who are sitting, who plan, who delegate the task, who organize those things. So there are managers who organize and plan, and then there are managers who are the operations manager who operate. Like giving a simple example, if I have to differentiate both of them, a chef is actually, I would say, he's the operational person who's in the kitchen, who starts cooking along with the junior chefs, and they get the food ready. But a food and beverage manager is a manager who plans the menu along with the chef, what types of menu will be there, what food will be there, and how will that food be distributed and whatnot. So that's a management task or managerial task. And here the chef does the operation task. I think I'm made it easy to make you understand, is it? Just asking. Okay, let's move on and have more clarification on that. So we discussed about committees that are to be put in place, especially when we are planning these conventions and we are executing these conventions and meetings. So the steering committee is a very important role player, and this committee really, I would say, is the lifeline of planning and management. So the steering committee has the overall responsibility of the operations. Yes, management as well as operations. That means it's a committee which takes care of everything, not just the chef, but also the food and beverage manager. So on top of both of them, right? I think this example will help you to understand. Now, the steering committee must also meet with each other. Now, I can tell you from the first-hand experience that I was actually involved in arranging a conference in one of the universities. So I was a part of the steering committee, and I was also the coordinator for that particular conference. Now, I do remember that we used to have, like, the planning used to start around 6 months early. So we did, it was not a huge conference, but I was expecting around 500 guests in total along with my students. Now, in saying so, we had to plan 6 months early. And at first it was every monthly meeting, then became every fortnightly meeting, and then became every weekly meeting. See how we were coming closer? The frequencies actually changed. And obviously, it also would depend on how complex this, how big the conference is, how complex it is. Now, moving forward from here, what we're looking at when we actually meet, we take a stock whether the timelines are maintained or managed or not. So the schedules are to be maintained. And if there is anything missing, what do we do and how do we fix it? The next thing is to monitor the operations are taking place as per the plan. When we talk about operations, please remember the kitchen. That means if there was the hall booking was to be done, is that done or not? If food and beverage organization was to be contacted and menu was to be finalized, has the menu been finalized or not? If you have sent the letters out to the different delegates or not? So these are actions, right? Now we look at those as per the plan, have we completed or not? And then when we sit in the committee meeting, so we see maybe someone has picked up something which has not been done as per the plan, or something which was required, or we missed out, or we doing over. So all those things, we get a feedback of each other committee member, so that we have a different pair of eyes. Okay. Now, sometimes due to the policy, few things cannot be done. Now, if you actually try to recollect and go back, there are many policies. I'll give you a very good example. As a student, if you were in the classroom, were you allowed to use a mobile in the classroom? What was it taken as? No, mobile phones are not used in the classroom, right? Look at the COVID-19, how things have changed. We are allowed to use mobile phones for the classroom, isn't it? Things have changed. So we have to see similarly in case of our, convention, if there's any policy that needs to be changed and that's not implemented now. So now there is a social distancing. So if that social distancing, with the social distancing, can we have the same number of clients in the same building as we used to have before? And look at it, if the committee requires to be strengthened, if there's some other extra member needs to be in the committee, and obviously the steering committee must actually meet regularly. Having said that, when they meet regularly, they must meet prior. I was telling you that we used to meet, we start from 6 months early. And then we also need to actually meet during and even post-event. Why post-event? Post-event is very, very imperative. You know why? Because if there are some issues that we observe or they surface during the conference or convention, we actually need to take a stock why this happened so that it does not happen. We need to note it down. When you take a feedback, what is the feedback which has come? And obviously we have to evaluate the performance. How did we go? Was it as per the requirement? So all those things actually come as a part of the steering committee meetings, right? And those meetings, those recommendations that come out of it will be implemented in the next one. There's a very important role that comes over here is called secretariat role. Obviously, when you're dealing with hundreds of people or even 50, less than 100 people, when you are organizing a meeting or a conference or a trade fair or even a convention, there's a lot of background or the back of the stage work which is required. And that's, back of the stage work which is required, it's part of the planning and execution. But imagine if you want to climb you want to climb the floor, you want to go upstairs, but you don't have a ladder. So ladder is required to go to first floor, isn't it? But if there's someone, like I've got a ladder, but there's someone who's actually having a disability and who's on the wheelchair, we need an elevator. So secretariat role is very, very imperative to actually assist, the execution or quality execution of the event. Now, it actually plays a major role. The secretariat is actually a nerve center of the convention. When I say nerve center, what I mean to say is it gets all the information, when to send message to whom, who is the delegates, where to actually connect with, whom to connect with, then what emails to be sent, confirmations to be taken from the hotels, from the airlines, from the travel and tours. All those things are very, very important, and these all roles, they come from, your secretariat. And now there are various committees, right? A committee could be towards, travel, a committee towards accommodation. We will discuss these committees in detail later, or even reception for that matter. Now, the secretariat actually makes sure that the coordination among these, committees is there. And if they require some help, secretariat is actually also helping them in doing the job easier. Now, very important role to maintain records. Okay. Now, obviously, when I say maintain records, we're talking about how many delegates are coming, from which location they're coming, where you have to pick them up, how you have to pick them up, when you have to pick them up, where are you going to stay, which accommodation they're going to use, and all such things are records, isn't it? And then all this information that needs to go to reception. Let's say if this person who's coming by air from the aeroplane, so a reception committee should be knowing that someone is expected to come. Accommodation committee should know that someone is supposed to have the accommodation there. Transport committee needs to know that they have to send someone delegate to receive the delegate, isn't it? So there's a lot of actually exchange of data. So that information is passed on and received, and that's important records, which is again a part of the secretariat role. And obviously inferring information, scanning the data, evaluating it, getting the information out of it, and then passing on to all the committees, and even the information can go to your clients. Now, also an important role that secretariat plays over here is if there is something which is missing, or if something which is actually not up to the mark, to bring that up, to actually then maybe if possible correct them. Now, look at the jobs and details and the responsibilities that we're looking at a secretariat role, isn't it? Isn't that quite a person who has a lot of knowledge, who has done these things many times, who has experience in managing such all those information and data? So hence it is very imperative a person who's actually looking at, working on secretariat operation, they actually are a lot experienced and not amateurs. That means someone who's just going to try and do it first time. Now, I would not, recommend that to happen. Then comes, okay, we've done, secretariat is done. We understand that, but there's another, important thing that we really, really need to understand. Put it this way. What if, your books are there, right? You have your books, and when you study your books, you have a publication of your books, and you say published in year 2015, published in year 2017, in 2019, and 2021, right? So all the publications have changes. That is why there's a new publication, right? Similarly, what if the secretariat does not keep a record of the file, or the master file for that matter? That means the book which was there in 2015 does not state it is 2015, and the book which is 2021 does not say it's 2021. How will you differentiate? Which book has, this book has, what has changed in the book? So, and that can be quite confusing. Especially, there are a lot of changes when, the staff delegation is there, when your customer says, hey, there's an alternation. Earlier, there were 10 maybe senior faculty, senior CEOs or senior delegates were coming, only 3 are coming. Oh, there was a change here. So now, when you do the change, where does this change go? Where do you record this change? So that is where it comes to very imperative that you have to have a master file, and that master file, it tells you that now this is a file, this is a procedure, this is a performer that we're going to follow. Now then everyone follows the same performer, and everyone follows the same standard and same structure. When you follow the same structure, your records actually, when you maintain the records, they are on the same performer and structure. and they're not duplicated. Obviously, if you know there is a structure, there is a numbering, a system in place of the master files, you will not have any duplication over there. Now then comes timelines of the messages to be passed. Now, when you talk about timelines, what we're looking at, a message which needs to go to a supplier to tell him, hey, we have 6 months that we have a function, we arrange that. 1 month before the function, maybe again have a contact with the supplier, right? Yes, so-and-so is ready. If there's any changes, let them know the changes. If there's no changes, if there's any additions, let them know. 2 things happen over here. Number 1, you actually connecting to your supplier, letting them know, hey, a reminder, very, very subtle or a soft reminder, tell them, hey, just to let you know that next month is my conference coming, right? Second thing is, you're actually able to update if there's any change or something, because you're still within the timeline without any penalty, right? So this is where we say that, the information, the messages are passed on. And obviously not just supplier, you can pass on delegates too. I still remember when I have to go for a conference, I get conference alerts. If I book for a conference, I get alert maybe just a month before, then maybe fortnight, maybe a week, and then a day before, and the same day, hey, today. So obviously now there's a system in place, and computers tell us, Google Calendar is there that tells us. Now this needs to be done so that we are maintaining a relationship with the both clients as well as suppliers. Now, when you pass this message, obviously you have to record this message, isn't it? You have to record this message. Whom are you sending this message? When are you sending this message? And how are you sending this message? Why, whom, when, and how? Whom is required because you're interacting to your clients or you're interacting to your supplier. When do you send it? Very, very important. I was telling you that in my conference, I get couple of month, maybe, fortnight, a week, and a day before and on the day. How do I get this information? They have made an app, or you have a newsletter, or they send a message. So there are different ways, what way actually works for you. So this is how, the process works over here in terms of the record of the messages, and as well as timelines. Now, we were talking about standardized format. So let's talk a bit more onto that, because obviously the organizations, they do need to standardize their format because there's so many people who will be using their formats. Not only the people who are working for the organization, but also different clients will be using their format, isn't it? This format can be used for correspondence, invitation, circulars, registration forms, feedback forms. Well, all those forms, all those interactions, or all those messages, they actually are an evidence at some point of time. And if we have a standard format, we actually can pinpoint any issues and mistakes. We can work on that and we can actually fulfill the requirement, right? Now, in saying so, correspondence is very, very important. Invitations, again, when the invitation needs to go, how does it look like? Because a person may have 10 different invitations. So how does your invitation come out? Again, what are the registration process? Do they have to do it before? Because again, I'll take the example from the conference that I attend. So what they say is, they call it early bird price. So early bird price is a cheaper price. They ask me to submit money around 5 minutes early, or then if you are doing the same day, it will be expensive. And same goes with the feedback forms. So feedback forms again give them a lot of information about how we did anything. So with the standardization, there's another aspect that I'm going to take here is travel and accommodation. Now, when we're talking about travel and accommodation, we must follow that there is a very important aspect in travel and accommodation. Now, when there is a conference or a meeting, travel and accommodation is imperative. Accommodation maybe not, but travel is imperative. I may be going from my house because the conference is in my local town. I may not need to actually need accommodation. I just need to go take my car, go and be a part of the presentation. But what if there are a lot of people coming from different places and the lot of requirement of transportation is there? So in that scenario, please make sure it's again comes back to the Secretariat and also to the steering committee that the exact expense list is actually provided, which is travel and lodging expense list. What is the travel mode? What are different travel modes that the client can travel? Now, give you an example again. What if your clients are coming from maybe Mumbai and going to Ludhiana, and there's a small town there where there's a huge new factory coming up, and there is accommodation availability, three different types of accommodation availability. Now, at times it is included, at times it is not. Then it is your choice that what accommodation you want, how much you want to pay and whatnot. And then it must be with the clear fares and what are different lodging facilities available. Now, all those things are very, very important when you tell these things to your clients, because then clients have a very clear picture of what exactly is being done and what exactly needs to be done further. Let's have a look on this example over here where Khajuraho is linked by air from Delhi and Varanasi. The nearest railway station is Gwalior and Jhansi, and both cities taxi and deluxe coaches available. Now, with this information, what they've given information to the client about availability of air routes and where the next station is, how far it is, where are you. So this example gives you an idea how should you let your clients know. So there are 5-star hotels in Khajuraho. These are tariffs of the hotel, these are bedrooms, and obviously there are some 9-category hotels, and there's a paying guest accommodation available. Now, when you get this information to your client actually then decides what I need to do, and then they will do the booking. Based on the booking they do, you actually have to pick them from the airport, bus terminal, train terminal, pick them up and drop them to the particular hotel they're staying, and then from the hotel, or maybe from airlines to the hotel, then a hotel to the conference center. Now, look at the back-end work in organizing, and imagine if there are 500 people. So it becomes quite complex, isn't it? So let's look at this few important aspects over here. Booking arrangement must be informed, because if the client is doing the booking, it's it's first come first serve booking. So you come first, you take the hotel. You don't come first, you come last, then you don't get the hotel, right? And then I was telling you about early bird. Any early confirmation is appreciated. So we have something called early birds in the conference. So they give you a discount of some amount of, sometimes some extra facilities. Then confirmation acknowledgement should be sent immediately. So obviously, as and when you receive the booking for somewhere for hotel, so obviously you send a confirmation. Yes, I received your booking. Fair enough. See you over here and so date. And obviously, when you get this booking, that information must go to reception to let them know, hey, so and so person will be coming, and you have to take care of this person, and also to the hotel or wherever they are staying, right? Now, obviously, with this, what happens is that once you give this information, there are relevant, other committees who actually start working on it of the information that you're given. So we have done a lot of things, isn't it? We learned about a lot of stuff that Secretariat does, but we also have to make sure that there is availability of business center. That means we have Xerox facilities, stationaries, equipment, then copies of any information that is required. So when we do this, we have to make sure while there's a conference, everyone in the organization is actually given a job role to do. And Secretariat is the person who should be actually quite experienced, as said before, but should be able to manage and do these jobs, all the jobs during this conference, which is quite tiring though, but it is important. Now, I will take up this last topic, but we will continue this topic in our next lecture. So in this topic, what we're looking at about the various committees, I will just briefly explain you, then we'll further go on. Now, to start with, I'll deal with the reception committee. As the name says, reception, to receive someone. So what do you think could be the responsibilities? Obviously, when you receive someone, you're the first point of contact. You may go to airport, railways, whatnot. But the person who goes over there must be a happy person, warm and welcoming person. And a good idea is to use volunteers. And the good suggestion is not to use a person who's not so friendly, not so open, not so warm, so that the person who's your client does not feel, hey, I'm not being respected. Then when you go over there, I still remember I used to come by flights, and then there used to be people who are holding the name card of mine, but they'll be holding somewhere down here and I can't see that. So either you hold it up or you make it bigger stick so that you don't have to hold for hours and hours, right? And also the reception, it must be manned at all times. Manned means someone must be there, all right? With the situation now that we have a lot of people coming at one point of time. So if the receptionist is missing from 1 minute or 10 minutes, it's a huge time because a lot of information processes from there, all right? So, and also this information must be given to the guests, to accommodation committee. That means obviously your accommodation committee tells about lodging, your transport tells about vehicles which are available, whatnot, the delegates, who's going to receive them, and bring them to reception. When you bring them to reception, you let them know, the receptionist, okay, this is my client A from hotel room, so-and-so room number and whatnot, and receptionist takes from there. And obviously, those receptionists, they must be welcoming, they must know the requirements, and they must have the details of the requirements, and if there is any issues or troubles, that really needs to be addressed. And now, we have come to the end of the session. Let's look back at what did we do. We actually looked at how to understand the managerial tasks involved in the implementation of convention. Isn't that a bit complex? But that's all right, isn't it? We work through and make it easier. And also, various operations and organization tasks. So when we are implementing this convention, there are a lot of tasks which are organization, and more than that, they are operational tasks. That means how things work. And with this, I'll let you go today, and I will come back to you and we will do further committees in the next chapter, rather same chapter in the next lecture. Thank you so much and have a good day.